everyone, welcome back to Let's Talk. My name is John, and today here on the channel, we're going to be talking about Barbie and its Warner Brothers 4K Blu-ray that came out a few months ago. So Barbie was released in July of 2023. It came out actually on the weekend of July 21st, along with Oppenheimer, and Barbenheimer took the world by storm that weekend. Not only is Oppenheimer one of Christopher Nolan's highest-grossing films ever, but Barbie became the highest-grossing film of 2023, and it became the highest-grossing comedy of all time, the highest-grossing film directed by a woman in Greta Gerwig, who wrote this film along with her husband Noah Baumbach, who himself is a great writer-director. So this movie will be one of the defining films of 2023. I think along with this and Oppenheimer, when we look back on this year, these are the two films we'll be looking back on. We'll be looking back on that weekend of July 21st, where theaters got this resurgence that they so desperately needed. And I think for the film industry, this is what we're going to have to do to get butts in the seats at the theaters, is we have to really promote these big events. Unfortunately, as much as it is to my chagrin, the smaller movies like The Iron Claw, Poor Things, The Holdovers, like those movies, they're just not going to make money in theaters anymore, and people are just going to be willing to wait till that stuff pops up on streaming services. We've kind of just molded the market to go towards streaming service. I blame companies like Warner Brothers and Disney for that, where we've just kind of said, hey, eventually, within the next 45 days, these movies are going to end up on streaming services. You don't have to go spend all that money at the theater this weekend. So really, only the film fans are going to theaters, but to get the regular old consumer there, you got to really make it feel special, and make Barbie feel special. They did. They put the big Barbie boxes in theaters. They made all girls feel inclusive in this one, and that's the big theme of this movie. It is a female empowerment movie in a way. Margot Robbie plays stereotypical Barbie. In this movie, she begins to have an existential crisis, and it turns out that, her human counterpart in the real world, who has the doll Barbie, American Ferrara, she's having a crisis. She's having a hard time, thinking about the world she lives in. She's having a hard time in the relationship with her daughter, who in this movie just rips down Margot Robbie's Barbie when her and Ken eventually show up in the real world, because Margot Robbie and her Ken counterpart, played by Ryan Gosling, phenomenally in this movie, by the way, just showing the range of Ryan Gosling. The way he can do comedies, musicals, and still be one of the best dramatic actors of all time. This guy has appeared in Barbie and Blue Valentine, which is one of the most heartbreaking, tough watches that you'll ever see in your entire life. Just shows the range of this guy, the talent of this guy, not to mention the amazing physique on this guy. He could just do it all. He's one of those people that make the rest of us just feel terrible about ourselves, because to have somebody in the world be that talented, obviously one of the best songs in this movie is I'm Just Ken. Anywhere else I'd be taken. Is it my destiny? Just had a Christmas version come out as well. Check me out, yeah, I just can't. The actual soundtrack for this movie is phenomenal. I listened to it a bunch of times this year. Is Barbie one of my favorite films of the year? It's floating that line of being in my top 10 films of the year. I do think it's one of the most important films to come out this year. I was entertained both times that I watched this movie. I understand why people got a little bit upset, feeling like they got beat over the head with the message of this movie. The American Ferrara monologue might go on a little bit too long, really driving home the themes and message of this movie, but overall, I think the message of this movie is really good. I don't think it was like beating a dead horse, or as in this movie, the men love the horses because they're basically men extenders, which I always thought that was a really funny joke. All the jokes in this movie kind of land for me. The musical sequences, they land for me as well. I'm not a big musical fan, but the way they did it in this movie, I think it wasn't dragging out those musical scenes. I felt like they were actually there to assist the plot. And this is the kind of movie that really lends itself to one of those soundstage musicals. Like, they built all these sets for real, which I just really appreciated, because Warner Brothers, when they want to use their green screens and their CGI, they really create this awful looking hazy effect in the background where they overexpose the lights, and it just never works for me. It's like generic cinematography 101, and Warner Brothers are the king of using it. They did not do that with this movie. They didn't spare any expense. Like, they really shot these on their London sound stages, and it really shows. That's why practical effects are so special. These are real sets. Everybody was interacting with real things. I know it costs more money, but really it shows on the screen where that extra money is going. Everything just feels bigger. It feels, I think that Greta Gerwig, she said that this was artificial, but to the most extreme. Yes, it's done so well and it looks so good, but everyone knows that these are fake sets, something that they were doing back in the 1950s, and I really appreciated that for this movie. It works perfectly for what Barbie Land is. They really got the production design down for this movie, whether it be with the costumes, makeups, sets, everything just looked phenomenal in this movie. It really was eye candy. They did a great job on that aspect. All the actors do a phenomenal job in this movie as well. The songs are all catchy and great. Bringing in Caitlin McKinnon entertainment, as Weird Barty is one of my favorite choices as well. She, I think, is one of the best working comedians over like the last like 10 to 15 years. She was my favorite actor on Saturday Night Live for a long time, and I'm glad to see her getting some more work, because I was very afraid that she was going to get lost in the actors shuffle when it comes to acting out in the world, and just because comedies in general don't do well, so it's nice to see her get in on this movie. Apparently her and Greta Gerwig went to college together, so they had a relationship as well. And then the only real flaw of this movie is Will Ferrell's character. As much as I love Will Ferrell, and I also think he's hysterical in this movie, it's just that his entire arc with all the other Mattel executives, you can cut that out of the movie. It's really not necessary to the entire plot of the film, but I did appreciate the good laughs that were in there. They kind of really, again, lent itself to the comedy, because the comedy aspect of this movie really is, it's great. It's great. And then obviously we drive the movie home with a really nice emotional third act to wrap everything up with a bow. And I think it really works. I really hope that they don't make sequels to this movie. I hope that Greta Gerwig and Margot Robbie stick to their guns when they said that, like, this is going to be a movie in a bubble, because this movie is one that we're going to look back on in 2023 as one of the best films to come out that year, along with Oppenheimer. This is what 2023 will be remembered for in the film industry. And I feel like if we water it down with a bunch of bad sequels, which is inevitable in my opinion, we're talking about Warner Brothers here. We've seen all the bad decisions that they have made over the last couple of years just to get a buck.
You sit around here and you spin your little webs and you think the whole world revolves around you and your money. Well, it doesn't, mister.
They don't really care about the art, but it's really awesome that they put this movie out, one of the best movies of the year. I just hope that they don't water it down with just some crappy sequels, generic sequels that are just there to make money, that don't have the message, themes, and the heart that was put into this movie by Greta Gerwig and by Margot Robbie and by the rest of the team that were here making this film. So I really did enjoy it my second time around. Maybe not as much as the first time around, like all the stuff, that spectacle of seeing in the theater. It didn't translate as well to when I got it home on 4K Blu-ray, but it's still a great movie. If you haven't seen it yet, by chance, I mean, it made $1.4 billion at the box office, so I'm sure most people have seen it, but if you haven't, I can definitely recommend it. But we're also here today to talk about this Warner Brothers 4K, and let's do that right now. Well, here it is, the Barbie 4K Blu-ray, courtesy of Warner Brothers. I'm playing catch-up as the year is coming to an end. If I'm making my top 10 4K Blu-rays of the year, I have to at least check out Barbie's 4K Blu-ray. So it dropped in price to about $20, and I decided, hey, let me check it out, see what it is. And you know what? It's a pretty good 4K Blu-ray. It's nothing special. It really is your typical new release Warner Brothers 4K, where they kind of held some stuff back, but it's still overall really good. It's a modern 2023 film. It's a Warner Brothers release, so that means that there is no Dolby Vision, just HDR10. I like what they did here with the Warner Brothers logo, but I love that they made the Warner Brothers logo in pink for this one. I think it works perfectly for this type of movie. Really just leaning into the pink. You slide it off so you get the slipcover. You come inside, and it is a one-disc set, which is to be expected for new releases. There is no pack-in Blu-ray. Would have been appreciated for people who don't have the ability, but you could just buy this on its own. But for people who like to have the Blu-ray and the 4K, it is a little bit unfortunate, so all of your extras are going to be on this 4K disc. I do appreciate the individual pink disc design, at least leaning into that. They could have just gone the plain route, but I'm glad that they did at least a little bit something with that. All of your extras, like I said, are on that 4K disc, and it's just a bunch of featurettes that were filmed during the making of this movie. I appreciate that. There is like no documentary, but they really do go into every single aspect of it, because it is an on-set making of documentary, essentially split up into a bunch of featurettes. Everyone is overly positive. It's just like your typical on-disc featurettes, nothing that's too impressive, but I did appreciate them giving us a good amount of information on here, going into the world design, costume design, all the makeup. I actually did appreciate it. It's nothing too special, but, it's still very much appreciated. Now, as far as the audio goes, you get a nice, really good Dolby Atmos track. Maybe not one of the best of the year, but it is definitely in the top 10 mixes of the year. Really makes great use of all your speakers. I would have liked a little bit more bass, but the channels, everything coming out of them is mixed very well. The dialogue is crisp and clear. It just doesn't feel like a very special Atmos track, but it is still a fantastic Atmos track. You also have quite a few other audio options on here, which I thought was pretty good, because Warner Brothers usually doesn't do that, but you do have a good amount. I just wish that the menu system was set up a little bit better, where you have to kind of go left to right, and I feel like that kind of hurts seeing what all the audio options are. It's just a complaint about the menu system, so it's not a big deal, but I do appreciate them giving us all of those audio options. Now, as far as the visuals go, this was shot digitally, so it just looks completely clean. Certain movies this would look kind of ugly in, but for a movie like this where it's supposed to look bright and gorgeous and just be eye candy for you, you know, not having film grain because it's shot digitally is fine for a movie like this. It's supposed to look like you can step into that world. It's not supposed to look as, you know, like cinematic when it comes to like the real world. All the cinema stuff is coming from the set and production design, which all looks phenomenal because it's all done practically, and the 4K Blu-ray just makes all that pink and stuff just pop out at you. But it also does a good job of making all the skin look natural. Everything does look real, fluid, vivid, dynamic. Really just no complaints about the visuals, just other than the fact that, you know, it's a modern day 2023 digitally shot film. So if you're not into that style, you're probably not going to like this, but there is no flaws when it comes to the visuals here on the 4K. Overall, it really is just a phenomenal looking 4K Blu-ray. It's just your regular, you know, run-of-the-mill, let's get this new movie out there on 4K Blu-ray. It's overpriced when it comes out at about $30+ dollars, but once it gets down to like $20, that's the fairest price for it, because, you know, just eventually down the line there'll be a collector's edition with a brand new documentary packed in here, brand new extras. You know, obviously we won't get an update to the Atmos track of the visuals for a very long time, but eventually there will be a nice collector's edition of this release. Right now, this is just for the people who want to get this movie, get it on 4K Blu-ray, watch it at home, show it to their kids. That's the kind of people that this 4K Blu-ray is for. It's great. It's what you'd expect a modern day 2023 new release 4K Blu-ray to be, but it doesn't ever exceed those expectations. So overall, I would still give this 4K Blu-ray a really solid 8 out of 10. Just would have liked some more extras, and I would have liked a little bit more pizzazz and flash to this one. Those are really my only complaints. Other than that, they did a phenomenal job on this 4K Blu-ray, and the film itself, even if you can't get this 4K Blu-ray, is definitely worth your time. But anyway, guys, that's going to do it here for me on another episode of Let's Talk, and if you enjoyed this review and you want to take your support of Let's Talk to the next level, like Jason Martin and John Doe Juggalo, who are our two-channel producers, or our two-channel directors, Kevin Kruger and Frank Rodriguez, you can join the ranks with them. Look for the link in the description below. But if you have no money to toss our way, don't you guys worry about that. The best way to continue to support this channel is just by liking this video, subscribing to the channel, turning notifications on, sharing this video. Then after you're done doing all of that, get out in those streets and tell your friends about us. Then we'll be seeing you around.